Hello and welcome to the SportsGrad podcast. My name is Ryan Walker and with me is the SportsGrad GOAT, Ruben Williams. How are you, mate?
I'm fantastic. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for that word. I'm feeling fresh. I'm feeling really good, actually. Prior to recording this podcast, we had about a 20-minute window between meetings to have lunch and spruce ourselves up. In that time, I managed to get a little bit of a quick workout in, and then I thought I need to, I'm not going into this podcast sweaty. So I've done a quick drive down to the beach in Lorne. I've gone via the bakery. I've picked up a chicken and salad roll. I've then driven down to the beach. I've chucked my towel in the sand, thongs next to it on the rocks, jumped in the water, swum around for a bit. Thankfully, the water is cold enough that I didn't want to hang in there for too long. Jumped back out, dried myself off, jumped back in the car, driven up the hill, scoffed my sandwich on the way in, and then sat down with a minute to go before recording this podcast. So feeling good. Feeling good.
I mean, I wish I had the same story. But that actually does check out because when we did jump on to do the pod, he was just gnawing at the last remnants of his lunch. So, yeah, but a busy day at HQ. I remember in Whip on Monday, we were like, Wednesday's looking pretty big. So that's fine. We love it. And it's a big day and there's a bit of energy about. I wish I had a beach like yours to jump in, but hey, here we are. So I'm pumped for this episode. So let's crack in, Rubes. We can't go any further without mentioning our great mates at Deakin University, where every single course is backed by industry experts. So you can be confident that you'll get a job you want with a degree that employers want. Deakin University, progressive real-world learning.
A big thank you to our other great friends at Sports Where I Am. If you're looking to give yourself an incredible summer, looking to go to all the great events that are happening in Australia and around the world, head to sportswhereiam.com to find some great deals on tickets there. You can use the code SportsGrad to get 5% off your tickets as well. But that is an excellent platform if you're just looking to find sports where you are. Pretty simple as that, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, the title says it all. So jump on there if you want a great deal. If you want to learn more about who we are or want to ask us any questions, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. You can find a link to do so in the show notes. Ruben, hit us up with who we chatted to today.
Ryan, today we're talking with Jacob Colangelo, one of our loyal SportsGrad members who's been around for a long time now, but he comes from a background of an engineering degree. He then pivoted from that before completing a Bachelor of Commerce at UWA before jumping into a sport management master's degree at Deakin University, the factory as we like to call it.
Yeah.
He's been a long time lover of baseball, so some of his early experience came from Grassroots baseball, which is absolutely fantastic. Which was, which has come from his family history being Canadian. He comes from Vancouver originally. So he's got this great experience together in baseball, which he's leveraged into softball WA, where he's now got an awesome role there.
Yeah, no, he's a ripper. We love that he's done a sports management master's at Deakin as well. It truly is the factory and we love it. So, Ruben, what are some things you took away from our chat with Jacob?
One of the things I loved about this conversation, Ryan, is how he just went from being a student, studying away, working away, plugging away at all the stuff that students do, to being thrown into the deep end and working on softball during an Olympic year. He's dealing with all the different stakeholders that, softball has to deal with when the Olympics are on. And so his world just got completely flipped upside down, and he's now dealing with these documents and these people which are highly important to the operations of the Olympics.
Yeah, I loved how he spoke about a bit of a moment of inspiration for him to basically drive into a baseball ground that led to his job. So it was a bit of a crazy moment where he just like, hey, why not? Why don't I just drive in there? And
let's take a left here.
Yeah, take a left there. And, you never know. It could lead you to a job. So that was quite interesting to hear.
I also loved hearing about his cover letter, which he it's good to know that some people listen to the webinars that we run, Ryan. You'll hear about more of this when we get into it, but He took the bones of the cover letter that we've got in our membership, and it's got 100% strike rate now. So I loved hearing how he used that webinar, applied it to his own job application, and has found this incredible success from it.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into it, Rubes. Grab a pen, enjoy this chat with Jacob Colangelo. Jacob, welcome to the SportsGrad podcast.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for having me.
Jacob, pleasure to have you on. We're loving the setup behind you. For those on YouTube, they'll be able to see this. You've got an array of classic soccer jerseys behind you. Do you want to walk us through what teams are up on the wall?
I'll go up. So usually it changes a little bit depending on who's playing. I've actually just changed the wall from all Italy after, the best team in the world won the Euros. So behind me, I've got a signed Juventus jersey from I think it's 2013-14 when they were the first team to break the 100-point barrier in the top 5 European leagues. Then I've got 98 away Socceroos jersey above me.
I really like the look of that one.
Yeah, that's good.
I've got the 1994 Roberto Baggio long sleeve jersey, which is quite rare.
Oof.
Then I've got Andrea Pirlo for the 2006 World Cup winning Italian team. I've got Germany 94.
Asterisks on that one.
Yeah, no. Germany 94, Italy jersey for 96, but the training jersey, and then above it, the Euro jersey for the home jersey for 96. And then right in the corner, I've got I think that's 98 Juventus jersey, and then a
Arsenal
96, I think, Arsenal jersey. Don't quote me on that.
I kind of relate those shirts to what sponsors on the front. Like the JVC reminds me of early Arsene Wenger days. The Jeep on the Juventus shirt reminds me of when Pirlo went and played there. What was it? 2012-ish, around that time. There. But no, it's very cool. We have spoken previously, and you mentioned you have a love of soccer kits. So I was expecting there to be quite the background for this podcast, so you haven't let us down.
Which is good. Yeah, the rest of them are all in a box and around. It just depends on when I wake up and I go, you know what? I actually don't like the look of it, because I look at them when I sleep and I go, I'll change it through. So I've been trying to change. I've actually about to start a business selling them. So I collect everything from every sport. So I've just been, wake up. I've taken my Seahawks one off because they've been playing horrible. So
Geno Smith in at quarterback isn't quite going to plan for them.
No, I've refused to watch the games.
Do you have any Man City jerseys on, in your possession?
I do. I have I think it's 2018 third kit. It's the one that's purple with the sash that's orange. I love that one. Just because colors. I don't think I have anything else. I have a lot of teams. I've just not done Man City, obviously, because of how popular they're getting. They're getting, especially the older ones, getting really expensive, and I don't really want to spend that much money on a jersey that I'm probably not going to wear too much.
Well, I've got a signed Man City jersey from the day in history for Man City when Sergio Aguero
the day in EPL history.
Yeah, when the greatest finished any competition of all time. It's signed in my house in Perth. So
I'll go grab it.
If you want to have a discussion, we'll chat offline.
Oh, it's all right.
I think it was the 21st present, so it wouldn't be ideal to let go of that one. It is quite special. So
that day was actually the day that City actually became a club, because for the rest of the 100 years they were just absolutely useless. Saying that as an Arsenal supporter, we've been in the dumps, but hey, I got to take my wins. I think we just won this morning in the League Cup, so quite happy.
We could go down a very long rabbit hole with soccer, football.
Brilliant. It's quite the collection. Jacob, I wanted to kick off this conversation by going right back to a message that you sent me earlier this year, and I'll read it out for you. It said, "Ruben, I have just secured a role as Participation and Development Officer at Softball WA." Then you go on to say, Starting a Masters of Sport Management at the beginning of a pandemic seriously made me question whether I would be able to secure a job on graduation, let alone halfway through my degree. Where were you at the time that Softball WA called you up to say you'd been successful, and how did it feel?
So I was probably in a similar position to where I am now. I was actually at my computer. But when I take calls, for anyone that knows me well, I usually can't sit still. I've always got energy, so I was pacing around the house, around my kitchen bench in a circle. So I got the call, and I probably can't repeat some of the words that I screamed out afterwards. But yeah, no, it was just like a huge sigh of relief. The conversations that I had with you just previously was. In Perth, it's a bit different. Our sporting industry, there's not as many opportunities that are available. So everyone talking to Melbourne, even though we were in a pandemic, and I think you guys were just out of lockdown, is that all these internships, there's all these event volunteer you can do here in Perth. It's very, very closed off, and also I wouldn't say I'm old, especially in my masters. I'm probably one of the younger ones, but being 24, we have kids that have come out of school and done year 11, year 12, wanting to work in sport and doing, grad certificates, and then having 6 years experience and then competing with me. So I found it was extremely tough to crack into, especially with limited ins, and a lot of the time people just recycle into jobs. And then so yeah, it was quite hard to find opportunities. So I worked really, really hard to try and get something. What I initially had said was I started my masters, I think, on the 9th of March last year, and was planning on leaving to go to Vancouver in Canada and living there for 10 months while doing my masters on the 14th of April. And everything went to shit on the 29th of March, and I wasn't going. So, two weeks into a master's that you've changed your whole degree and what you previously have done to enter a new industry, and everything in sport stood still. I think for the first time ever in sports history, it stood still. So then you go, okay, what's going to happen with me? Because if people are losing jobs left, right, and center, if the world's getting turned upside down, there's no sporting events, nothing's happening. Like, it's hard to believe the fact that even now, we are watching games. There was nothing on. I was watching the Belarusian Premier League because I needed to watch sport.
Yeah, there was some funky leagues that were operating. Hey, I remember KO at the time was just like, what is this? I was watching cornhole and stuff like that.
I was genuinely watching the old reruns of the hot dog eating contest.
Yeah.
But yes, the lucky thing to me is I've always been a big gamer. You can probably see by my setup. But the great thing was that esports didn't stop, so I was still watching esports. But that's where I was like, well, if this is the new world, esports are going to be the only thing that's going on. So I was just sitting there being like, what am I going to do? All my plans have gone backwards. I've got no idea of this new industry, what I think it's going to be. And it was just, a year and a half, well, a year and a bit of relief that basically just got pushed off my shoulders, being like, oh, I've finally done it. I've worked really hard. I've done all the right things. I've made sacrifices, and it's finally paid off. So that was the first thing. The second thing was obviously as soon as I got the call, the first thing I called was my mum. Well, I texted my mum. Yeah, you had to. So then I texted my dad as well. And then, of course, being an Italian family, everything gets through very quickly. So my phone was blowing off. So I can't even tell my friends because, someone's calling me, being like, oh my God. But yeah, it was a big sigh of relief, is probably the main thing.
That's awesome. That always seems to be the overwhelming feeling, and I definitely experience the same feeling. When most people might think, oh, you just overcome with joy, it's actually, the first feeling is just relief. I can stop stressing about it now.
Not having to write another resume, or a cover letter. Oh God, mate. Literally sitting there and reading my own writing and prepping. I think that's the big thing, is that people don't realize that applying for jobs is a part-time job, especially if you're going hard for it. So, and in all honesty, at the time, the job only came up because, well, of some things that you guys had said, but I was tipped off for the job and tapped on the shoulder to say, hey, you should apply for this, because at the moment, because it was the start of semester, I had gone, you know what, let's not apply for jobs until the break, because I just want to focus on this semester. And then I was like, okay, one more, I've been asked to do this, and that was the one that paid off. So I think that it was sort of me being like, oh my God, I've got all this stuff that I still have to do, and I'm now going to be working. So, but yeah, I think it was just a big sigh of relief, and I'm very happy I didn't have to write another resume.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a scary one. Like, I don't know, when's the last time you did a resume?
I think it's been 6 months. Like, it was 7 months.
Yeah.
But what we'll probably be speaking about is that I'm now, currently updating it. And I think the first thing you need to remember is that you don't stop updating your resume. And I think I realized that after like 3 months trying to jot down all the stuff that I've done. I think it's actually on my desktop now, because I just need to have access to it at all times.
It's a good answer.
It's very proactive of you.
Yeah, it's very good. So you've been there for 6 months now. What has been some early highlights for you?
So one of the draw cards to working at softball was the fact that it was in the Olympics for the first time in 13 years. So softball had previously been at the 96 to 2008 Olympics, and then was not in for London or Rio. And then obviously a year later, from what it was supposed to be in Tokyo. The thing is that it's a sport that's very, when it's going to be at the Olympics is when countries that are hosting the Olympics are very good at it. So first one in 96 in Atlanta, softball is one of the biggest participated sports in America. So it was a no-brainer that they brought softball and baseball into the Olympics. So that was a big draw card for me coming into it, was going, oh, like, cool, I'm in an Olympic sport and it's first time, and it's pretty good, like, that I'll be able to like be there when it's working on. First day in there, we have a team of 4 of us. And so I was like, who's running the socials? They go, oh, everyone does it. And I was like, cool, I'll put my hand up. And then 2 weeks later, I get a document that I never thought I would ever see, which is the Channel 7 broadcast requirements for posting online. So, being able just to read all the documents of what you can post, what you can't post, what all the stuff around, like the Aussie Spirit, which is the Australian team name, is called the Travel Lodge Aussie Spirit, getting the dates in which, they just become the Aussie Spirit, that all references to any sponsors get removed, editing photoshops of, Game, which is normally their manufacturer for jerseys, removing that because it's an Olympic thing. So that was the first thing, was probably getting onto the Olympics and having to, and sort of being there to drive our campaign for WA, which is actually the first ever time they've really had a social media, because back when it was in the Olympics, it was 2008. So that was quite cool. And that was probably one of my favorite projects that I was on. And it was great because it was a way for me to be introduced to the softball community and seeing some of the things that I could do, because what I have gotten was that they were like, we loved it. We saw that there was every game, there was updates, even if we were at work, we knew what was going on. So it was actually quite good just having the support from Softball Australia as well, just trying to push some stuff. So it was a bit of an eye opener to see, an Olympic document and seeing, what people actually do and how strict the Olympics movement is on Channel 7 and everything. So like we can't even reshare or tweet during a game. It was only allowed to be Softball Australia was the only one that was allowed to tweet during a game. So it was, me chatting to clubs saying, hi, I know you have Olympians there, but just letting you know that, like, just follow our lead. Like, we'll give you all the content, but you can't be doing this because the IOC is, very big on their rights, and they will go out right. And like Varsity Restaurant here had an Olympic burger.
Love Varsity.
They got a cease and desist letter for their Olympic burger of the month, that they had to change it because they were using.
My question is, like, one, like, yeah, okay, but number 2 is, how have they found that Varsity has a burger?
Who is checking
in
that
the western suburbs of WA, and they somehow know there's an Olympic burger there?
Yeah, so it's like all that stuff. So just seeing like how strict it is, and then understanding. So like I was like speaking to people, they're like, oh, like this is like really cool. I was like, no, I don't think you see. The document's like about this thick. And on top of it, it's like all the stuff you can do. You need to like, these are our goals and mottos and stuff. This is channel 7. 7's, 7 Olympics is what they're going to be doing. This is how you write all the stuff. I think it was quite cool to see like it at basically the top level of what it is. And for someone in their like second month of work, quite crazy that you're the one that's dealing with all that. So that was probably my first highlight. My second highlight was probably just meeting with clubs. So I have played baseball. I still do play baseball. There's a lot of crossover between softball and baseball, especially in WA. So it was nice sort of to be able to see people that I sort of knew and sort of expanding my network of people. And then on top of that, the problem that we have is in softball in WA is that we don't have strong pitchers and catchers. And that's basically the crux of the sport. If you don't have a good pitcher, then your batters are not going to be as good because they're not facing as good a pitcher. So what I saw is, chatting to clubs, there's like, oh, we don't have any pitchers or catchers, and we don't know what's going on. And then it was sort of me being able to go, well, that's what you are seeing, but what I'm actually seeing is we have no coaches that can coach them, because if they could coach them, then our pitchers and catchers will be better. So for the past, I think a month ago, I ran a pitcher and catcher clinic, and last year they had about 20 for each. We had 75. So it was great sort of just to see, I'm actually implementing something that's working and what members are wanting, and I'm getting extremely good feedback for it. So I think that was another big thing for me. Also, I learned how to pitch. I wouldn't say I'm a very good pitcher, but I learned quite quickly how to pitch. So I think it was great because it allows me to get out of the office. It allows me to get there and learn stuff and still interact with people. So I think that was probably the second thing that's been quite good.
So you literally out there yourself coaching people on softball?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's why, like, it was a bit of it. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, my third week, I was like, well, I need to be an accredited coach because
I was going to ask.
Yeah. Like, you're the participation and development officer, and now you're a softball coach as well.
Yeah. So that's because what I saw is that obviously it's quite hard because a lot of the coaches are older, and it's like, well, if I'm trying to run something through the day, I've got a limited amount of people that can help me. So it's really important for me just to understand everything. So I just did, it's technically like in other sports, it'd be the full level 1, but it's like 4 courses. I just did the 4 courses, and I did it quite quickly because obviously, playing baseball, understanding it's still quite similar. But yeah, so I basically was just like, this is important and I need to do it because I need to understand, because the quicker that I can facilitate stuff at a high level, the cheaper it's going to be for me, which means I can get an extra coach. Also, when going to regional communities, they want to ask about this stuff, and it's the same questions that are just like, hey, we need some, tips on this. So I just needed to upskill myself as quickly as possible just to works. So I wasn't actually running the pitching clinic. I was just there help facilitating, but I also was like in it. But yeah, it's quite good because all of a sudden, like, you're in the office one day and the next day I'm out there with 60 kids and parents out there. So, and then probably the final highlight I'll say is I've sort of started with another lady in the office, Donna, a state league competition. So previously we have like associations, and there's no real, like in cricket, you have like a pretty good format of districts, and which is basically runs like from associations through. We don't really have that. So we always had PSL, which is Perth Softball League, would have their Premier League comp that had 3 teams last year that people would just join. They didn't want to run it this year, so I was like, let's run it. Let's run a state competition. So wrote the ground rules for that, talked to the clubs, doing all the social media, created a logo, creating all the social media content for it, promoting it, doing a ladder that everyone's like, wow, this is great. So I think that's probably been quite good, just being able to use my graphic design skills and, my understanding of the game to sort of create this league. And it's been fantastic. Like, I will be there tomorrow night as well, hopefully, if it doesn't keep bucketing down rain. But yeah, it's just been great. And then, being able to speak to people. I think that's a big thing that's different in sport. And that was my attraction, is that you have so many connections with people that if you're in an office, all you got is your clients. At least I can go out, do my job, come out of the office for 30 minutes if there's games out, chat to people, see how they're going, and just have that interaction, which for someone that's very social, I think it's probably something that I should be doing.
Love it.
That's awesome. So you've gone from like halfway through a master's to being thrown into this organization where you're creating content around the Olympics, on top of going out and coaching yourself and creating your own leagues. Like before all this, what sort of chance did you give yourself of entering a position like that when you started out?
In all honesty, I was looking initially at social media positions, just because that was sort of my background, as well as I do have an undergrad in that. So I didn't think that at all I'd be able to get something like this job. So I did sort of get tapped on the shoulder, and it's sort of how, when speaking to people and other SportsGrad members about sort of how I started and to get this role. Like, I remember one of the key things that obviously probably the core message that you guys say is get involved in grassroots sport. So I previously hadn't played sport competitive, like in a club environment. I've been playing with my mates socially the whole time I've been out of uni, but probably was when I was still in school. And as Ryan would know, being in a PSA school, sport, sport, sport. So as soon as I just sort of needed a break, and so because you're not in the club because you're always playing for your school, you don't have time to play in a club. So I lost that, and I was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like, I've not been involved in grassroots sports ever at a high level. I've always been, a junior participant, or so I don't. So that was the first thing, was I was like, well, I sort of need to get involved into stuff. So by absolute sheer coincidence, I'm driving home one day from work, and we've got an LED sign out front of the baseball club saying, "Hi, registrations tomorrow, come down." And I was just like, well, I want to work in baseball. Dad used to play for this club 35 years ago. I watch baseball all the time. You know what? Let's just go. Let's go do it. So that was the first thing that I did, is I literally joined the baseball club and then offered that I would redo their logos because they were all pixelated. So I just redid them and went up to the president and said, yeah, if you need anything for social media, like small jobs, just let me know. So, and then got involved with there. And then the big thing that you guys talk about was, using your network. And so I was always telling everyone, yeah, I'm studying sport management. Like, it's a bit different. I got invited to come help out with the CP football program, which is the cerebral palsy football program in WA. I had a family friend, like a very good family friend, cousin. We're Italian. Everyone's a cousin. In the program, he's represented Australia, the Pararoos, as well as one of the guys facilitating the program is a family friend as well. So he just said, hey, come down. We need, the boys, especially some of them that have more able bodies, because in CP football, they're actually like tiered. So you can only have a certain amount of points on the field because of movement. So the ones that are highly mobile really like having able athletes so they can compete against, because then they're playing against in an environment that's similar to having their type of athlete at a high level at nationals. So I came down and just started helping out, and a year later I'm still going down. And I think that was the first moment when I said, oh my God, I picked the right degree. Like, I had such a good time. So for me, it was just, getting back involved and then using my network. And that's the funny thing about, like, it's actually crazy because everyone asks how I got a job at the Wildcats DJing. And I literally say to them, my mate has been on the team for 8 years. And I just was like, can I join? And he goes, yeah. And then sends an email. And it's so crazy how, like, people just, don't use their network or don't ask. Like, the head DJ at the Wildcats that I'm good friends with now, I asked him how he got on the team, and he goes, I used to come to the games as a member, and I saw that people were DJing, and I was like, he emailed them saying, I've been a DJ for 20 years. I've won all these awards. Can I join the team? And they said, yeah. So
that sounds like a pretty clear strategy.
And that's why
I might become a DJ.
Yeah, I might just ask.
But that's why I was like, because for me it was like such a barrier, because you're seeing, all this stuff of, all these, like, listening to the podcast of all these things that people have done. And then I was just like, all I have to do is just go out and ask people. And the worst thing they're going to say is no. And at least they know who you are. At least they know that you're proactive. They might go, yeah, no for now. But when they're thinking about something, they go, okay, at least I know that someone's proactive. and wanting something and looking for it, because you may not get it now, but you might get it in the future.
Mhm.
So what's been really lucky is like the fact that I've done all this. And then what this actually leads on to was how I got the job at softball. So I played baseball. I was like, I just really want to enjoy the game. I want to play with a bunch of older guys who have played for years, because I just want to learn, because they've got experience before I push myself to go a lot higher. And one of the guys in the team I really connected with, went to his 45th birthday party and just started talking to his wife. And she was just like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm studying online for my master's in sport management just right now." And it was about the time, just after the time where I was about to start at the Wildcats. I've just done all the stuff with the CP football. I've said I've just started my podcast as well. Like, I'm just trying to get my name out there and just get some experience, because it's been hard during COVID. Conversation, all cool. Because I knew that, and I was asking about her. She's a CEO of a company. All of a sudden, I get a message being like, "Hey, what were you talking to my missus about sport about? She wants to speak to you in our grand final." Tiff's on the board at Softball WA. This job's come up, and she said, "I think you'd be perfect for the job. Apply." Not saying that I got the job because of that, but I wouldn't have gone for the job if it wasn't for that. And the fact that I got a tick of approval from a board member just by speaking about it, I wasn't not asking anything, but just making everyone aware of what you're doing allows people to think of you when something comes up. Because in all honesty, I probably wouldn't have gone for this job if I didn't get a tap on the shoulder to say, "Hi, you actually might be good for this," because I wouldn't have thought that I might have been as qualified as someone else. Um, so yeah, so I think that's why, for me, my early thoughts about getting a job in sport was that it was going to be extremely hard. But in all honesty, it is hard. But the more people you chat to, and the more people willing to bat for you, and basically talking about your vision, talking about what you want to do, and just asking, like really just asking. And then on top, if you're asking, 10 people a week for something, if you're doing that for 8 weeks, you're most likely going to get one of them saying, "Okay, maybe not now, but a little bit, in the future." And that's probably big for people coming out of lockdown, is that they don't have these volunteer staff previously, because there might be a year and a half of not doing anything. So if you start asking now and start going, okay, networking, asking, emailing, cold emailing, you're probably going to get some sort of experience coming out of that.
Yeah, no, that's a great example of why it's so important to stay top of mind and the results that it can lead to.
Yeah, it's just like, and just speaking, like, I think if you, the big thing that I've found, if you're really passionate about something, and I feel like everyone that's wanting to work in sport is extremely passionate about sport, and if you're not, you might want to change what you're trying to do. But because everyone is so heavily passionate about it, you need to show your passion. And I think if you can share a vision to people, especially people that aren't in the sports industry, like when I chatting to Jay, who's the head DJ at the Wildcats, he loves asking what I'm doing in the course, because I've always said to him, "This is what we're doing. I'm so passionate about this." And he's always said, when something comes up, "Yep, hi, I've got this. Can you passing it on? I can't do this. Can you do this sports stuff? I think it'd be really good for your degree." He DJs at the Force and the Fever. He got me down to a Fever game because he said, "You should actually just come watch how I do it, because it's differently, and different stuffs you can use for event management to understand the difference between basketball and netball, seeing the way that the Wildcats run their operation, like a schedule, and then something like the Fever, which is not a sport that's probably as well developed in netball, and sort of see how their event management goes and how their broadcasting goes." So talking about it being passionate and being able to just say that you're keen to learn has been such a benefit, because people are looking to help you if they're not in the sporting industry, because they're going to sort of live through you. Like, I know for Jay's helped me out a lot and been a bit of a mentor for me, and helped me out with a lot of the DJing side of sport. But I've always said to him, I was like, "Mate, once I'm over in America, you're coming over and you're DJing. Like, I'm getting you free tickets, you're DJing." So I think just explaining to people and sort of being passionate, they want to live through your journey, especially if you're young and you're passionate, and they're going, "Oh, I love to work in sport, but it wasn't something that I could do." So I think that's a big thing, is just be passionate, tell everyone about it, because people are wanting to help you.
So, with all that in mind, what made you become a SportsGrad member?
So I think for me, I actually found SportsGrad when I got accepted into Deakin. Coming from a club background at UWA, that was always, clubs were always a way to be in and understanding what was going on. So I was like, okay, let's find what's going on at Deakin. So I'd been, watching the content that Ruben had put out previously. Probably this would have been like November 2018.
Oh, you'd seen the YouTube videos.
Yeah, I've seen the YouTube videos. I like, yeah. Yeah. So I was watching that.
Cam Smith from our membership, he's another one who messaged me way back when, ages ago. I was like, how has this guy in Queensland found these videos? And now I'm thinking the same thing. How has someone in Perth found these videos? But great to see you've found them somehow.
So that's where it sort of started, because I've always gone. So I think I was looking at Deuce's stuff, and they were sharing some stuff with you, and just seeing, what are they doing? Who are they bringing to the table for? And then obviously they had shared some stuff for you. So I'd followed that, and then I'd connected with you on LinkedIn before, I think before SportsGrad really blew up. And then sort of saw the stuff that was coming out, and then you started posting a lot more about, lockdown and what you can do in lockdown. So I was just loving the content. And then your podcast came out, I think a week after I'd recorded all my episodes for the podcast, and I started listening to them. And then I'm also friends with Hayley Hamp, another person from Perth.
How do you know Hayley?
Uni games.
Oh yeah, nice.
So I played mixed netball at Western Uni Games and 10-pin bowling. I did play 10-pin bowling at Australian Uni Games. And if anyone's wondering why I played 10-pin bowling, it's the least amount of exercise you can do after a big night out.
Yeah, I don't get how people play footy at Uni Games. Well, when Uni Games isn't a thing anymore, is it?
Well, not for COVID at the moment.
Yeah, I think they canned it though. Maybe that's
it became. I was at the Australian University Sport Conference in 2017 when they talked about remodeling it to make it a professional stepping stone for athletes going to the Olympics.
And that went down real well.
Yeah.
Well, we had a pretty good Olympics, so who knows what role Uni Games played at that. But episode 22 for anyone who wants to check out Hayley Hamp, good friend of the show.
But yeah, so Hayley messaged me saying you should listen to this, because I'd always spoken to Hayley, because making the switch, she had just made the switch to Collingwood, and I'd always asked her about how she's finding it changing to sport. And so me and Hayley, I played mixed netball at Western Uni Games as well, and she was just in the women's netball team, and then we just got along and has kept in touch since. So she sort of was like, you need to listen to this, like this will help out. And then so I've listened to almost every episode and been through. And then I think I jumped on the membership once I started to go, okay, I'm really in, let's start working to get a job. So not actually sure when I signed up. I think it might have been December or November last year.
Let me take a look.
I think because it was just, you had enticed me by the price going up, and I was like, stuff it. I'll finally bite the bullet and do it. And yeah, so that was sort of for me, it was a bit of the big draw card was, I think, like-minded students. The one thing that I always say in my resume and cover letter that people can use, that I'm a highly motivated and passionate sports management student. And for me, if you're highly motivated, you should be doing everything in your power to succeed. And so I saw that this was a way for me to say, look, I'm not just listening to the episodes, I'm actually being active in a community and trying to pursue my career and move forward. So that's what I saw, was that this was a stepping stone for me to start showing someone that I'm actually trying, instead of just applying for degrees. I'm basically investing in myself, was the first thing. The second thing was just meeting.
You're right. Like, it's a big thing to say I'm putting money down to do extracurricular stuff.
Yeah. And that was so meeting, I think, other like-minded people. So obviously I had, you sort of see the people that are liking all the SportsGrad posts on LinkedIn. You can sort of see the community, and I'd connected with them. I like heavily had used LinkedIn. So a bunch of, I just look at the students that were liking the SportsGrad post and send them a connection, because I just wanted to broaden my LinkedIn connections of people that are like-minded, going through the same thing, seeing the opportunities. But I think it's actually opened a few doors. So just yesterday, I was on a call with Shiv, who works at Softball New South Wales. So I think it's also like you're looking into being there. Like I was really confident just sending him an email because we're connected on LinkedIn. I know where it was. I just sent him, this real casual email saying, "Hey man, loving what you're doing with your marketing hub at New South Wales. I'm trying to do something like that in Perth or looking for it. I know you guys have just come out of lockdown. You haven't really tested about it, but wouldn't mind just having a quick 20-minute combo, seeing what you're doing. How's it working?" And then from that, a quick introduction through that, we had a 20-minute call yesterday about work. And that's because I know him through the community and I've seen that he's there. So I think on top of that, not even just looking for a job, being active in the community, you start recognizing names and you start seeing other people that you can connect with, and you never know who's going to open a door for you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When we had one of our meetups in Melbourne earlier this year, Sean Callanan, founder of SportsGrad, said to us, the main like what you're doing is great. You're upskilling students. That's fantastic. You're building this community. Where it's really going to become beneficial is in, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years time, when everyone's working in the industry, everyone's growing together, and you've got those connections already cemented from an early point in time. So yeah, who knows where we'll end up together, but you're right. Like that connection piece is a cool thing that has become a part of it.
And I think it's also like an early chat to someone. Like it's a really easy introduction. So like I remember speaking to Nathan on I jumped on one of the quick speed networking or meeting someone, and we'd actually never talked face to face, but we'd known each other from the community and actively posting on LinkedIn and commenting on each other's stuff. And I just said it was like, if it wasn't, especially for me being a cloud student and away from everyone in Melbourne, it's a way to interact and just seeing what he's doing. Like I probably know quite a lot what he's doing with work than most people that are actually friends with him, just because I keep up to date on LinkedIn. I see all his posts on the community, so I can actually interact with him and speak like nothing's changed. Like we've never met each other, but we actually know so much about each other. And I think that's different, as well as I think creating and being around people with like-minded and also working towards the same goals is great for yourself, because you can relate to other people. So you can see what other people are doing and say, "Oh, that's actually really cool. I should try and do something there." And I think also like seeing it makes a face to the LinkedIn connection and seeing what they're doing and posting in the community and just chatting to them. It actually gives more. So like I think I spoke quickly to Pat during the LinkedIn connection. I saw yesterday that he, we were chatting about him getting a job and what he was finding and where he was going through. And so I saw yesterday on LinkedIn, he did a sport marketing course and a Google digital marketing course. And I liked it. And I was like, that's actually really cool, because I know his story. I know that he's really trying hard to get a job after his bachelor's, and he's upskilling himself to do this. So I think it was also creating the connections and me going, I should probably also start doing this. So I think it's good. And I think it also pushes other people in the community to do more. If they're seeing that other people are succeeding, then they can see, yeah, okay, it's time. Let's start moving towards it. I actually see that other people are getting jobs and what they're doing is similar to what I'm doing. And so I actually have the confidence to go for something that I normally wouldn't.
Yeah. So you're kind of like inspiring each other in a way. What other ways has it helped you progress your career?
So this will be a funny one. So the Geelong cover letter, I think you wrote that you did a webinar on.
Oh, the live job
application. The live job application. Yep. I literally copied my cover letter off that. Like I obviously changed and adapted to myself. But that was actually like my cover letter is pretty much like the same format, because I previously had like an old.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, format and structure, like that was
I didn't copy it.
Play on with structure and format,
and just remove Ruben out of it and insert Jacob. I actually did it, but it was that was. I think that was one of the first things that I interacted with, like in the with the like live webinar recordings. And I watched that, and it was just chatting through, dissecting I've always found that I was quite good with dissecting a job description, but it was just seeing another person's opinion, seeing what words you use, how you format it, I think helped. And at the end of the day, I used that cover letter like once and it worked. So like it's a 1-for-1 for me. So it worked quite well. But I think that was probably the big thing, is just having those resources available to yourself if you need it. And just being able, I think, with those, not that I've always been in a live webinar because it hasn't really worked well for time-wise for me in WA, but I think being able to be in there and asking questions and having your resume or cover letter next to it while it's being live also can help, because then you're looking at what you haven't done and what can be done. So yeah, so use that webinar. I think it's one of the first ones. So if you are a member, I would highly recommend that live job application for that one.
Well, I think that there's 2 in there. I think
there is now.
Webinar number 1 was definitely live job application, and then I reckon I did a second one, which might have been at webinar number 6, for that reason though, so that people can start to really get a handle on this stuff, and that, so there's a bank of these sort of resources, so that whenever the time comes in the future and you need to revisit that sort of stuff, that resources are there to access.
Yeah.
Do you reckon you'll put to memory webinar numbers as well as podcasts, because you are exceptional at remembering episode numbers?
I reckon I know the podcast better than I know the webinars, and there's like 10 times the amount of podcasts out there, so
yeah,
we'll get there.
Something to go back to. I think we'll learn that off our heart. Jake, if you were actually brave enough to share with us what your career goal is, which is to be an executive on an MLB team, can you tell us where that goal came from and when it all started?
So originally, I'm actually born in Vancouver, Canada, and so we moved to Perth in 2002. So my mum's born in Canada, my dad's born here, and then we're Italian on both sides, which is why heavily soccer focused. But yeah, so for me, it's interesting because American sports have always been, my bread and butter. Like a lot of, I feel like Australian sports fans have found love in American sports later in life. But for me, it was, the Vancouver Canucks, the Toronto Blue Jays was what I used to watch. So while other kids were watching cartoons, my mum would be on Rogers Sportsnet and I would be watching any sport because it would just make me shut up. And so that just really works. So for me, I think my draw card to baseball has always been the fact that it's on 6 days of a week that your team is playing and there's more games than ever. So I just absolutely loved it because I was like, I can watch my team every day, play a game. So I just always, as a young child, just loved watching it. And then as I've grown and, the availability on, KO and other platforms to watch it, I've really started to appreciate how in depth the game is, and how sort of, I think if anyone's watched Moneyball, I think you start to understand.
Best movie ever. I mean, certainly in the top 5 in my ranks.
So I think you get to understand the sort of how much stats, and me being someone that's just loved maths and stats, it's been the draw card is there's so much information that you can look at and just look just analyze and that there's so much strategy, there's so much, so many players, there's no salary cap, players have played so much money, there's so much money in the game. So that's, for me, it just always was, it's just so different and so foreign to any other game that I've just always loved it. As well as, I think the big draw card for me wanting to be an MLB executive of a team is that I'm highly competitive. I love winning and I hate losing. So for me, I understand myself and I know that I work really, really well in high pressure environments. And I thrive in high pressure environments. And for me, the biggest high pressure environment is in professional sport at a major level. And just I always want to, obviously the goal for everyone, you guys working at Cricket Australia, is you want to work in the sport that you absolutely love playing, and you just everything about your life is about this sport. So for me, I just love watching baseball. So you guys can't see, but I'm actually watching game 1 of the World Series is on next to me.
Who's in the World Series again?
The Atlanta Brave and the Houston Astros.
Random teams this year.
Yeah, so
usually
so
a
I'm
Red
really
Sox
hoping
or a San Fran Giants or, I don't know, who else is a big team?
Our good friends, the New York Yankees.
Yeah, our good friends. Yeah.
Yeah. Love you guys.
Yeah. Big fan about what we do.
But yeah, so it was more just for me. Like, I think I've always been lucky because you need to understand the circumstances that you're in and let's say you as a person, you have advantages or competitive advantages over people. So for me, I'm a Canadian citizen. That allows me to work in Canada without getting a visa for as long as I want. It's a lot easier for me to get an American working visa as well. Being a Canadian citizen allows me to travel back and forth without getting a visa. Just for travel as well. So I've understood that, I've got this advantage that a lot of people don't have that I should be using to my advantage. And for me, like, American sport's a pinnacle of sport for me, bar maybe European soccer for some of it, that I've always seen that this is the highest pedestal, and that if I'm really driven and want to push myself, and so I just go, yep, I'd rather aim up here, like right at the top, and fall a little bit short than aim low and stay low. So I think that's, for me, it's just for my career and wanting to be an MLB exec, is just the competitiveness of wanting to win, and and me wanting to push myself to the absolute limit, and me knowing that I will be driven to get my goals.
So when you get to Canada, what's the first step?
So my first step, in all honesty, is when I decide to go over, I think it's actually just chilling out for a bit and spending time with family. I think in COVID,
set the gaming chair up and just
just and sit through. I think it's like and I think especially through COVID, I think we've learnt that we need to chill and we need to relax, and the importance of like mental health and working at your highest productivity and being happy. So for me, I think just spending time with family and just chilling out for a bit. Being at uni for about to be my 8th year straight, sort of time to chill out. But I think for me, when me and Ryan have been chatting about some things, basically starting square one, coffees, good old coffees and networking. Yeah. So obviously the American market's a lot different than the Australian market to crack into. And what we've said is it's pretty hard to compete with people who do their internship at the Lakers for stuff. So for me, it's just building a whole new network that I don't know, and understanding a new sporting environment that is completely different to what I have done. So yeah, I think coffee's first thing and probably the best thing to do. And it's also just, I think, meeting the right people and using your network over there. It's the exact same thing that I've done here. I've got family, I've got connections over there. Who do they know? Who can help me? Who can understand what I can do to achieve my goals? I think what I am doing at the moment is quite good for people, for other people to do, which is starting off where you are now. What abilities and attributes do you have, as well as competitive advantages that you have over everyone else that you might be competing against? Because the thing in sport is that in other jobs, 10 people might get a job for this job opening, but in sport, you need to be number one. So you need to show what you have that other people don't have and what you can do well.
Like if you're a graduate accountant going into a Big Four company, they're taking on like 50 every year or something like that.
So yeah, you don't need to be the best. So I think it's really understanding. I'm trying to, at the moment, understand myself better than I have, and understanding what makes me advantageous to someone, what makes me different from other people. So for me, getting over there, I spoke to Ryan. What might be for someone, not just myself, going internationally, and for international students who have come to Australia who are trying to get a job, is the big thing that you've got that's a competitive advantage is you've left your whole family and made a sacrifice to try and pursue your career. And that's something that a domestic student or someone from, the town that you're applying for can't say, is that they are willing to, for their career, make huge sacrifices that most people won't, which shows that you're driven.
But that's a big thing a lot of people leave off as well. Like, I talk to heaps of international students, and they don't even refer to where they've come from half the time. They just try and say, this is what I've done whilst I've been in Australia. I'm like, you've left your family, you've done a completely new degree, you've swapped careers. That's a story that, people can attach themselves to.
Had to work hard to pay off because, the fees, they don't have HEX fees. They don't have, they have a limited amount of time they have to work per week. They've got to pay for all their living expenses. I think just showing people, and that was the big thing that I need, like, I'm mapping out what will make me different from just a normal, US grad. And that can be like for me, something that's always been interesting that I'd love to get into is working with international fans. Being an international fan of major teams and being a fanatic is just a different view that most sports are now trying to get into. So for me, it's, can I enter an international fan experience? Because as an international fan, I have a better understanding of what international fans want. So looking at stuff like that, being like, what can be my pitch to a company of what I can do differently? So that's sort of the first
when
bit.
when we interviewed Jay Lee, the vice president of product experience at the NBA, he looks after NBA.com, the NBA app, and the NBA League Pass, and he said that Australia is one of the biggest markets for the NBA League Pass, and so that's where someone with international fandom experience becomes extremely useful if you can have them in the office, and you can say to Jay Lee, "Hey, I've spent a lot of time in Australia. I know what they think. These are the insights, how I can help your product."
Because that's the funny thing is, out of that podcast, I laughed because that was something that I never thought of, because it was just normal to me when he was chatting about the fact that the time of the game would ruin the score if someone was watching the game late.
Yep.
And I was like, that's just something that I've normally just like had to do, because if I'm watching a game delayed, I just have to do that.
Yeah.
But for someone that's never had to experience that, we've got an advantage as someone, like, especially for Australia, a lot of the markets, they want to tap into Australia, and working forward is just understanding what makes you different, what you can do differently. And then I'm hopefully trying to pinpoint how I can get to where I want to be and seeing what I need to do. So that's the thing that I'm doing at the moment, is just trying to figure out what also makes me special and what I can work off, and then trying to figure out how I can get to this goal. Obviously, you've got your ideal circumstance. The line is linear. In all honesty, it's probably not going to be. It's going to be a bit jagged and moving around. But I think just trying to pinpoint, and then what you can do is you can evaluate every job and every opportunity of, is this going to help getting where I want to be? It's like literally like how, sports, relating it to sport, is how, you have strategic plans, and then the sport has strategic plan. And if it's not helping the strategic plan, are you going to waste your time doing it? So it's working like a sporting organization. You're just making a strategic plan for yourself.
That's it.
Love that analogy. It's good. Finally, Jacob, obviously you were able to find a job halfway through your master's. What's some advice you would give yourself when you were at the start of your master's?
I think the first thing would be is being confident in your abilities initially, and what you're studying. I think I've sort of noticed in my job that everything that we've learnt has actually had such an application to what I'm doing. And that your knowledge that you have in sport, especially with sort of this transition period, I feel, in sport, where you have a lot more sporting professionals entering the sporting field, rather than previously it's just been a lot of business people, but they've been loving of sport. That you now have people trained in sport management, is that you understand that you're actually, stuff that you're learning is actually starting to be implemented now, and that your knowledge of things is actually a lot greater than what some other people can do. So even though you might doubt your abilities, but everything that you're learning and taking on, actually you could actually speak up and implement some stuff and give some ideas. I think that's the first thing, is don't doubt your abilities, and know that you're actually capable to apply for jobs. I think the second thing is just like harping on what you guys said, get involved in grassroots sport. I think at it beforehand. So like for me, I changed degrees and started in a master's. If you're in a bachelor degree and starting off at a bachelor, the best thing to do is just volunteer at a club, or looking for volunteer experience. I think volunteer experience, like what you guys said, is the best experience, because you're not getting paid for it. So they only see the benefits that you are giving, that you're giving up your time. You're not doing it for any other reasons. Your reasons are you love sport and you want to further your career. So I think that's the other thing. And the third thing is just work hard. Like if you're, like I said previously, one person gets a job in sport. If you are showing people how motivated you are, and you're wanting to do anything to try and get this job, and you're showing that by doing 4 different volunteering opportunities in a week, doing still playing sport, being really being organized, being at uni, someone's going to see that this person really wants the job and is willing to work to a goal and willing to get something done. And I think that for an employer, that's what they, especially a younger person, that's what they want. They want someone who's driven, who's going to get something done and is going to put 110% effort into it. And I think if you show that, you're on a real good way to trying to get a job in sport.
Fantastic, mate. Well, it's been awesome having you on the podcast. We love having a long time listener be present on the pod. It's and as well have one of our loyal members on as well. Just hearing you explain sort of what you're doing over in WA for softball WA is actually awesome, and you're really having an impact. And we can't wait to see what's next with the plans to shift over to Canada. It's looking pretty good for you. So thanks again for coming on, and we'll definitely chat soon. Alrighty, Rubes, what an episode. The great man, Jacob Colangelo, loyal SportsGrad member and member of Softball WA. What are some things you're taking away from that episode?
Ryan, if I'm listening to that, one, I'm taking a left turn into my Grassroots club whenever I drive past the next oval I see on the road.
Yeah.
But when I get there, I'm not just going to volunteer my time. I'm going to find a way to make that club better in whatever way, shape, or form I can think of. Jacob is an extremely creative person. He took over the social media, added his own graphic design flair to it, and made the role his own, and that leveraged into other opportunities. So look for ways to make your Grassroots club better is one of the main takeaways I got from Jacob.
Yeah, I took away just the idea of, a lot of people come to us and say, I want to work for the AFL or I want to work for Cricket Australia. And I think some people can get too, invested in getting that job at the big organisation. I think what Jake has been able to do is secure a really awesome role at Softball WA, a state sports organisation which offers a lot of opportunity for people to expand not only just their job title, but they get a mix of everything and you're able to have a huge amount of impact early on. So I think the lesson in that is don't wait for that role just to come up. If there's one that's there, take it because you're able to build that experience from the get-go and you're not sort of waiting to sort of struggle to find bits of experience. So don't wait, just crack in, try get a role at a small organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that, don't wait for a particular point in time. Like Jacob said originally, I might wait until the end of my degree. I want to focus on one thing at a time. I want to get some work experience. I want to study. I want to do that well. I'm not going to apply for jobs. It wasn't until he got a tap on the shoulders to say, hey, you should have a look at this job that he actually thought about applying. And now he's, loving life. So if you're thinking, I'm going to wait for a particular point in time to apply for the job, scrap that, get out there and start applying as soon as possible because you might end up working on the Olympics like Jacob did.
Yeah, absolutely. Be sure to connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to chat with you on there. You can find a link to do so in our show notes. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.